Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here on Horizon. Well, Americans are breathing easier and living healthier lives since the Clean Air Act was enacted in 1970. The government credits the Clean Air Act with significant reductions in air pollutants. Since 1990, lead is down 83%, sulfur dioxide is down 75%, and carbon monoxide, well, it's down 73%. And according to the Environmental Protection Agency, the act has led to measurable health benefits for Americans, including fewer missed work days and emergency room visits. Yet despite these gains, a recent decision has some warning those cleaner skies could be filled with smoke. Here to explain is our Andy Barth.
Well, Rob, here in Oklahoma, rural fire departments are first on the scene for more than 75% of all wildfires. But a new interpretation of an old ruling between the EPA and Department of Defense had many worried it could become difficult for rural fire departments to get their hands on dependable, life-saving equipment.
It happens nationwide every year. California, Washington, and right here in Oklahoma. Wildfires burn an average of 160,000 acres each year in the Sooner State. A number that could be much higher if it weren't for surplus Army vehicles in rural fire departments.
Over the years, we've taken these excess property and surplus property from the military and placed them with fire departments across the state.
Mark Goller is the state fire management chief with the Oklahoma Forestry Services and says even though these surplus vehicles are vital for wildfire protection, the Department of Defense halted all surplus vehicle sales.
On June 17th, the military issued a stop order and we haven't been able to place any vehicles from the military with the rural fire departments here in Oklahoma.
Currently, there are nearly 9,000 surplus vehicles and equipment being used by Oklahoma's rural fire departments, valued at more than $160 million. A lot of money, but just a fraction of the cost if purchased new.
We have agreements with over 900 fire departments here in the state. The rural fire departments are critical to emergency services.
Approximately half of my fleet is part of the forestry program or the DOD program.
Jason Miller is the fire chief in Luther and says it is fiscally impossible to buy brand new trucks and equipment for his department.
Being able to go down to Goldsby to the forestry department and pick through these trucks, find good ones, build them here in the station, they're that important. It's just, it comes down to a cost effectiveness for us. Without just, absolutely tapping out the city or the town, it'd be really, really hard to do.
And with the constant fire threat in the state, Goller says it doesn't take much for a wildfire to literally hit home.
Any wildfire that starts has the potential to reach a community, but out in the rural areas of Oklahoma and across the country, there are many small community subdivisions, ranchettes, a lot of values at risk out there that could potentially be impacted. And once it makes it into the community, then you've got not only the wildlands involved, but you have structures involved. You've got the potential for fires to move from structure to structure.
And running a rural volunteer fire department, Miller says he does everything he can to protect his community.
We try to find every way possible that we can to get the money, to get the equipment, and do the things and have the thing to give our communities the best possible fire suppression and rescue efforts that we can.
And Goller says reinstating the program between the DOD and rural firefighters is critical for small departments across the state.
This program is vital. It is vital to the continued success and to the life of the fire departments here in the country. If they don't have these vehicles, then our response capability across the state, across Oklahoma, is going to be dramatically reduced.
Now, since the time we met with Goller and Miller, the Department of Defense overturned the ruling made from the agreement between the DOD and EPA, due in great part from outcry from small rural fire departments around the nation. once again allowing rural fire departments to purchase surplus vehicles to protect their communities.
Well, certainly some good news for our rural communities, but not the complete reversal that some had hoped for, because now there's some new ground rules in place.
There are, Rob. In order for these vehicles to be used, they must remain under the Department of Defense so that they know that they will be destroyed once they're no longer in use. And that means all of the Oklahoma vehicles must be tracked and returned to the Department of Defense once the rural fire departments are through with them. And according to Oklahoma Senior Senator Jim Inhofe, this new agreement will create more red tape for our local fire departments. And while he believes this is the best short-term answer to maintain the program with the DoD, Senator Inhofe says he will continue to work with his colleagues to address the unnecessary regulation created by this agreement.
So I guess this is an instance of where you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Or at least make it so you're grateful for what you have.
All right, well, keep us posted if anything changes.
Will do.
Now, when we return, our environment and our economy from the EPA's perspective.